So let's talk about another cursed movie, and this one's more, in my childhood. Let's talk about The Crow from 1994.
The Crow.
Oh yeah,
this would have been the potentially the star-making role for Brandon Lee here.
Yeah, we'll talk about it for sure. Made about $50.7 million at the box office. It's about 88.5 million.
So not like a gigantic hit, but man, the cultural impact of this was pretty big.
This was a huge movie when it came out.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I never really got into The Crow when I was younger.
I was super into The Crow.
Yeah, I knew a lot of people that were into it. I kind of had some goth friends. This was a goth movie for sure.
Yes,
100%.
One of the reasons why this movie was so popular was because there was this burgeoning kind of goth scene that had been around since the 80s.
The soundtrack of this movie is fucking dope as shit.
Right. Had a great soundtrack to it. A lot of industrial bands from the time.
Nine Inch Nails, The Cure. I mean, it was a great soundtrack.
So it had this dark, spooky kid kind of thing going on. And this was like, all the goth kids at my school were into this shit.
Yeah.
Because it was like them, they finally got to be as badass as they felt inside.
Exactly,
you know what I mean?
Right? Because, no one takes the goth kid seriously. So, this movie does. And it's like, wow, yeah. We're badasses too. Look at us. We got our own action hero, for fuck's sake. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these goth movies too are just such shit quality where it's like they're not. I mean, yeah, they're movies that are based around that kind of culture, but they're not really relevant.
There really weren't too many movies that were like super goth. Like, even though that was a segment of the population, there wasn't like a shit ton of movies that fucking appealed to that. I guess there was like The Crow, The Craft, fucking Nightmare Before Christmas. Obviously had some fucking appeal.
Another big one, The Lost Highway. That was a big. It's not necessarily it was about goth culture, but like goths loved that movie.
Well, it's shot in black and black, so
yeah.
Another movie with the soundtrack the
soundtrack was better than that movie
good.
In my opinion, but whatever.
There's a scene in Lost Highway though that's really creepy. Do you remember that? There's that scene where like he's at the party and his cell phone starts to ring or something. And this guy's like, "Are you going to answer that?" It's like that creepy bald dude.
Oh, yeah. I think I know what you're talking about.
I don't remember.
It's been so long since I've seen that movie, but I remember I'm really liking that scene. Anyway, so The Crow, 1994 American superhero film, directed by Alex Proyas, written by David J. Shaw and John Shirley.
Oh, yeah.
Based on the graphic novel by James O'Barr. This fantasy follows Eric Draven, played by Brandon Lee here, a rock musician who is murdered along with his fiancée, Shelley, by a group of marauding thugs who terrorize the decaying city in which they live. 1 year to the day after his death, which happens to be Devil's Night, a mystical crow appears at Eric's grave. Eric then rises from the dead with the bird as his guide, and he goes on a mission to avenge himself against Top Dollar, played by Michael Wincott here, the leader of the gang who killed him. Star Brandon Lee was killed while filming a scene in which he was shot with a shell from an improperly cleaned gun, supposed to be loaded with blanks. So like his father, martial arts superstar Bruce Lee, Brandon was fated to enjoy his greatest popular success after his premature death. So this movie probably would have broken him into a long...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, this would have been a star-making role for sure.
Oh, yeah, man.
Because, this is not Top Dollar, by the way. This is Top Dollar right here.
Oh, gotcha.
This guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's one of his thugs, though.
It's one of his thugs.
Yeah.
Dude, I remember when this happened. This was crazy. This is one of the more well-known movie curses. Just the fact that he was just shot and killed during the making of it, and then like honestly, like I've read about it before, even this episode, and it was just the guy who was doing the handling of the props in the movie just did not clean the gun properly, and the round was lodged in. So when they shot, so there were blanks loaded in. So when the blank was trying to be shot out or projected, it actually projected around into his abdomen.
Yeah, there was it was loaded with blanks, but there was already a live round in the chamber or something like that.
Yes.
And that's what happened. I mean, it was a really convoluted and crazy series of events. It was almost like a fucking
Well, they're supposed to check these guns.
Final Destination kind of level.
I was in a play where I had to fire blanks once.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a play where at the end of the play, I commit a murder with a fake gun that fired blanks. Sure. And I gotta tell you, this was a college, a community college play. There was a dude backstage who handled the gun prior to me. It was his job to thoroughly check the gun, to personally load the blanks and be assured that everything that was in the gun were blanks. When I got to the backstage area where I would enter from, he would hand me the gun and give me a quick primer on, like, don't put your finger through the trigger until you're going to pull it. When you point it at the actor, you don't actually need to point it at him, because from the audience perspective, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because even with blanks, you're never supposed to point the gun right at somebody and pull the trigger.
Right.
No.
So you're supposed to angle off so that you're aiming around the person or over the person's head. So there's the safety protocols when you're handling a firearm during an entertainment production are insanely high. Insane. Like this gun is supposed to be checked and double checked, and custody of the gun, like who handled it, is right in, right out. There's one dude on the set who's supposed to be handling this gun. And clearly that wasn't done here. Like, if there was a real fucking bullet mixed in. And really what we're talking about here, the death of Brandon Lee, is why this movie is considered to be cursed by most people.
Right. I mean, that's the big one, right? I mean, maybe there were some other little things connected. I'm sure you'll let us know if there were, but
oh yeah. I mean, there were other things that went on this movie that when you look into it, kind of seemed to support the idea that there might have been some doom and gloom hanging over it. But yeah, while filming, Brandon Lee, son of Bruce Lee, was shot and killed by a live bullet unknowingly loaded in a Prop 44 handgun.
Right.
To make things even more tragic and bizarre, Bruce Lee himself died in 1973, shortly after making the film Game of Death, in which he played an actor who was shot after gangsters replaced a fake bullet with a live one.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy.
So this is a plot point in Bruce Lee's final film. Hey, this is supposed to be a blank, but it isn't. And Bruce Lee's killed in the movie because of that. The cause of death for Bruce Lee was ruled death by misadventure, as he had an allergic reaction to the painkiller used to treat his sudden headaches, swelling, and seizures.
Dude, I've seen that one movie they made about his life that was actually a good demon trying to kill him.
Right.
Yeah, the demon. It was all a fucking demon that was hunting him and his ancestors, man.
Exactly. It was his biography. Come on, or a biopic.
That was a dragon, I believe.
So this is Michael Massey, who plays Fun Boy in the movie, and he's the guy that actually killed Brandon Lee.
Wow.
So he was holding the gun, the prop gun that, obviously he's not to blame for that, but apparently, well, I'll read on here. He actually passed away in 2014 at the relatively young age of 64. Even though he worked on a series of other films throughout his storied career, Massey was never able to put aside the memory of pulling the trigger on Lee. And it allegedly ate him up for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, yeah, you're just trying to make a movie and you kill someone.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of memory that's not gonna go away. Pretty much for the rest of your life. You're gonna fucking close your eyes and see that shit.
Unless you wanted him dead. Dun dun dun.
Oh.
No, I think it was pretty fucked up.
Now, for me, in thinking about this, I don't put the blame on him, but apparently that's not the case when it comes to a lot of Hollywood insiders who, at the time, pointed their finger at Michael Massey, saying that had he handled the weapon properly, had he followed his end of protocol, Brandon Lee might still be alive.
I mean, there was numerous failures of protocol. I mean, like, because he never should have been handed a gun that had a live round in it. I mean, like, the person who fucking was supposed to check the gun is clearly the most at fault for this.
Well,
whoever had custody of the weapon, whoever in the prop department had custody of that weapon, is really the person who's at fault here.
I mean, if you want to put a little blame on Massey, who you maybe should have known not to fire it directly at the actor, even if it is loaded with blanks. I mean, he might not even have received those fucking instructions, though, for all we know. So, I mean, he might not have known how to handle a prop gun. It might have been his first time fucking doing it. I mean, I'm just not sure.
If you blame the actor, it's a lot different than blaming the production of the film for liability reasons. So it makes sense that a bunch of Hollywood people go, oh, it was the actor that fucked up. It wasn't the production. It wasn't the guys that were supposed to be in charge of that. I know Michael Massey was in charge of the film's safety protocols. So it's like, yeah, maybe he made some mistakes, but he was handed a loaded gun, essentially.
So no criminal charges were ever filed in the investigation of Brandon Lee's death against Massey or anybody. In 2005, Michael Massey told The Telegraph, it absolutely wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't even supposed to be handling the gun until we started shooting the scene, and the director changed it.
Right. So he wasn't even supposed to be the guy that was going to use the gun in the scene.
Right. It was a last minute change to the script, and he was just it was dropped. So, that's another failure. He wasn't properly prepped on the handling of the gun.
Right.
If you're going to fire a weapon in a movie, and I can almost guarantee this happens because it happened to me in a college fucking theater play. There was like a day set aside for me to sit with the former law enforcement officer that was in charge of handling this gun and take like a little gun safety course. Here's how you handle it on stage. Here's what you do when you pull the trigger. Here's where you point it. And apparently, if he showed up to work one day and was like, "Hey, you got the gun now,"
yeah,
that didn't happen.
That's not right.
So Michael Massey ended up taking several years off of acting following Brandon Lee's death. He also said, "I don't think you ever get over something like that," and I tend to agree. So do you recognize
this is the
Gene
pawn
Polito
shop
here?
He was the pawn shop owner, right?
He was the pawn shop owner. He was also
voice kind of thing too. Yeah.
He was also the brother Seamus in The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
The private eye, the private dick.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
The VW bug.
Yeah, he
has a very distinct voice. That's what I remember about him.
He was a favorite of the Coen brothers. He actually appears in a lot of their movies. So he was in this movie. He played the pawn shop owner. On the very first day of shooting on The Crow, was host to an incredibly awful accident. While a crew member was driving a cherry picker to set up lights, he accidentally fell into a ditch. But that wasn't the worst of it. According to an eyewitness, it was a narrow escape from his demise. So John Polito said, we lifted the back of the cherry picker where the guy was lifted up and went right into an electrical pole, and he was electrocuted. And he was near death. All of his organs were burned. He was about 26. His wife was pregnant. It was a really bad luck opening for a film.
Yeah, that's not great.
Fuck, man.
So dude fell off a cherry picker, and then as they were trying to rescue him, they basically pulled him into a live power line.
Damn, brutal.
And electrocuted the fuck out of him.
Totally brutal.
But this film was kind of covered with these inexplicable accidents. Not just the shooting of Brandon Lee, not just the safety violation of a dude falling out of a cherry picker and then almost getting electrocuted. While speaking to the AV Club, John Polito again discussed some of the more bizarre happenings that seemed to go nonstop while shooting. He said, the third night while we were shooting, I remember one of the prop trucks caught on fire and nobody knew what that was about.
Just a random, okay, the prop truck is on fire. No one knows why.
So yeah, it's late at night. Everybody's kind of just waiting around to shoot. And all of a sudden, just
boom,
one of the prop truck is just engulfed in flames.
Why'd that happen? I don't
know. Getting into stunt work is basically asking to be beat up, but most stunt people try and work smart so they don't get hurt. Unfortunately, on the set of The Crow, the universe was completely against the crew, and one stunt man almost lost his life. Reportedly, while preparing for a scene, the stunt person fell through the rooftop set and broke multiple ribs when he landed.
Owie.
Fuck, dude. This fucking movie is insane.
Yep. Early on during the filming, a carpenter suffered a set of terrible injuries while working in one of the set's many metal buildings. Allegedly, the crew member was doing some work while on a metal girder when the metal touched a set of power lines, and the following shot caused a series of burns to the carpenter's face, hands, and chest. So another electrocution.
What the fuck?
What an electrifying film.
Movie was plagued with fucking accidents, man.
So, I mean, this is why a lot of the people that work in the film industry are unionized. So there's the Screen Actors Guild and the Technicians Union and all of that shit down there, because they're, you know, like this is the type of shit that happens when a movie is slipshod, because nobody should get electrocuted. You know what I mean? There are safety precautions that can be put into place to prevent such things. And there's just no way two people should be fucking almost electrocuted to death on your set.
I mean, falling through roofs, falling out of cherry pickers. I mean, like, obviously the safety protocols in this movie were non-existent.
It's
like,
kind of
try to get it done.
It's kind of amazing that Alexander Proyas, the director, went on to direct some other films, because
you know what it is a lot of times is that there's like, here's the rules. Then people go like, do we really need to follow those rules? I mean, that's a bunch of safety bullshit. But you know,
a lot of this, I mean, a lot of people would say that the director's at the helm, so he should be responsible. But a lot of this isn't handled directly by the director.
Right.
You know what I mean? The studio provides a lot of these workers and a lot of the fucking, you know. So this was just a failure on multiple levels of mismanagement.
There was not a safety culture around this film. There was not people like you said in the play you did, the play you performed in when you fired the prop gun. You were given a tutorial and like it was probably drilled into your head like, don't fucking point this gun at somebody directly. Don't do this. Don't do this. So when you were on stage, all that shit was going through your head like, I can't do this. Like they handed this guy a gun like, here you go. You have a gun in this scene. Point at him and fire. It's just there's blanks in it. Don't worry about it.
And you know,
I mean, I perform that show 6 days a week, sometimes 2 times a day on matinee days for 3 or 4 weeks.
Right.
And there was no chance that anybody was going to be harmed by that gun that I was using. There's no chance. You know what I mean? I was so prepared, and I knew exactly where to point that gun where there was nobody standing. Knew exactly how to hold it. Exactly who to get it from. The person giving it to me knew exactly how to load a blank and exactly how to check that the gun was safe for me to use. You know what I mean? And that was a fucking tiny little shitty, not sold out community college play.
Yeah.
This is a big budget fucking Hollywood action spectacle. This just shouldn't happen.
It just comes down to the culture of safety or not safety. Like, and it depends on the production. It depends on the business. And this happens all the time. Some businesses have a bad track record. And this production, just no one gave a shit. It wasn't being taken seriously. And that's why you have these accidents is people like, they think, oh, those rules are stupid. It doesn't matter. It's going to delay the production. But actually what delays production is when people get hurt or injured or shit burns down or whatever.
Either that, Scotty. Either that or it was a curse.
I think it was a curse, man.
It is a good explanation.
The unsafety demon descended upon the crow. The demon of carefree, slipshod construction descended upon the crow.
You know, another facet of the crow curse is that Alexander Proyas, the director, went on to direct some real shitty movies too.
Yeah. Maybe it pooped up his career.
He did do Dark City afterwards, which I did like, but then he did a series of fucking garbage. His most recent movie was that Gods of Egypt movie from 2016.
Oh. Yeah, Alex Proyas.
Gross.
He made some good movies back in the 90s, but he's done now.
Dude, Dark City is a brilliant film.
Yeah,
it is.
And that's why after he did The Crow and Dark City, I'm like, man, this fucking guy is legit. And then he did I, Robot, and I was like, what? And then he did Knowing with Nicolas Cage, and I was like, what? And then he did Gods of Egypt, and I was like, oh, okay, he's done. He's just dead to me now. Ugh. Yeah. Horrible.
He had that 90s like dark, edgy, goth market corner, dude. He should have just stayed there.
Yeah, should have just stuck with that.
But enough fucking around, guys.
Yeah, enough of this bullshit.
Enough fucking around with movies that clearly just had a few accidents on them.
Now it's time for a real movie. God damn it!
I guarantee you, motherfuckers, are not prepared for Antrim. Lined as the deadliest film ever made.
Big bad pride.